Hi, I'm Crystal,
And I'm Neoshia.
and you're listening to the Rom-Com Detectives. Welcome to Rom-Com Detectives, episode 22, Mr. Mom. Today, Neosha and I will be talking about the second episode of Castle Season 1, Nanny McDead. This episode originally aired on March 16, 2009. It was written by Barry Schindel and was directed by John Terlesky. Just a quick note that we're not normally going to have Castle Unit episodes released 2 weeks in a row, but one of our detectives, Tara, is traveling, so this episode is going to be released where we would normally have a Lucifer episode.
And I don't know about you, Crystal, but I'm always happy to get another Castle episode out when we can.
Okay, case briefing. The victim was Sarah Manning. The cause of death was blunt force trauma. The motive was jealousy. And guest stars. Wow. This episode was pretty stacked. And that's one of the things about watching an old TV show, right? Because, I mean,
Mhm.
2009 was how many years ago? 16 years ago?
Yeah, 2009 could drive a car in most states if it were a person.
Yeah, so a lot of these people, I guess, became famous after, or like they had careers like long before and they were just guest starring. But first up is Sarah Drew. She played Chloe, who was the killer. Okay, so I have not yet seen Grey's Anatomy. Have you?
You've not seen Grey's Anatomy?
No, it's on my list.
Wow. Okay. So here's the thing, like I am not current on Grey's Anatomy, but yes, I have seen the first 10 seasons and
And
some
she's
here and
in
there.
that. She plays April Kepner.
Yes, she is in it. She was not really one of my favorite characters. She's kind of a later addition. She's also not on the show anymore. There was a big to do with her
Okay.
being, I don't know if she was fired, let go. There was some big drama, and suddenly a couple of actors were just gone.
Okay, next there's Jane Brooke. She played Mrs. Peterson. She's from. She had a lot of credits, but among them is Star Trek Discovery, and she was on a lot of episodes of Chicago Hope.
Yeah, and can I tell you where I know her from? Sorry, this is going to
Yeah,
get
yeah,
like
yeah.
so
No, yeah.
convoluted. I'm pretty sure she is in Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead.
Oh,
And she's
really?
like, yeah. She's what's his face? Oh my gosh, why am I forgetting the actor's name? He plays Will Gardner on The Good Wife. Why can't I remember his name? Oh shoot. She's kind of like a foil to Christina Applegate's character in that movie, but that's
Okay.
where I always think of her from.
She must have been young then.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think she's that old. I think she has to kind of be um, like,
College
uh,
age, kind of.
yeah, like late 40s now, probably early 50s, which is kind of wild when you think about like so many of the things that we watch, like when we were younger and, high school,
Oh no, I meant
middle
she.
school,
She
and
must have been
everything.
young in the movie. I mean.
Oh, yeah. She was like a young professional. She was like the receptionist at this
Okay.
office that
Okay.
Christina Applegate worked at. She would have been a little older than Christina Applegate, but not too much older.
Okay, now you're vaguely bringing it back. That's the one where she got caught dipping into the petty cash, right?
Yeah. Because basically, her mom hires a babysitter to watch them while
Yeah,
she
yeah,
goes to
yeah.
Europe for the summer, and then she, dies. And so Christina Applegate's like, "We're not telling mom. I'm just gonna go pretend to be an adult and get a job," which would never work in the 2020s, but it worked out really well for her. She had like this really top of the line job where she met Jane Brooks. See, we're getting back to the castle part of this. She met Jane Brooks' brother, who is played by the guy who plays Will Gardner. I cannot think of the act. Josh Charles. That's who I'm thinking of, Josh Charles. And Josh Charles's sister in that movie, because Josh Charles was Christine Applegate's love interest.
All right, next is George Newbern, and actually he looked really familiar to me, and but then I had to go look it up because I couldn't quite remember. I thought, oh, it must have been from an older movie, and that turned out to be right. So he played Mr. Peterson. He's been on Scandal, and he was actually in The Mentalist. He was the
Mm.
husband in Code Red.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see like how many of these like
overlap.
character actors, yeah, that we see in these overlapping positions.
But he was in Father of the Bride. He was Steve Martin's future son-in-law.
Oh,
The guy who was
yeah.
yeah, he is
That
Brian,
is him,
the
yeah.
groom. Yeah.
Yeah. Funny enough, I was just talking about the second one earlier today, but yeah.
He has very pretty eyes.
Mhm.
Okay, so next there's Jason Brooks, also guest starred on The Mentalist. He, I think, played the lawyer in Bluebird, and he was the guy who was Ian Harris in this episode of Castle. But he is from Days of Our Lives. And then there's Melinda Page Hamilton. She played Mrs. Harris, and the only thing I recognized from her was from The Peripheral, which was a one season before it was canceled show on Amazon. It was actually pretty good, so I don't regret watching that one. And then there's Len Lesser from Seinfeld. And then there's the guy who played Brent, the boyfriend. He had like a really small scene that was played by Michael Graziadei. I don't know if I pronounced that right. I'm sorry. But he has credits for 1,169 episodes of The Young and the Restless. That's a lot of work.
It is, and, like, I love to see it. I love that soap actors get those jobs and, that's income. That's income,
Yeah.
right?
And then he was also in The Lincoln Lawyer. So, but yeah, lots of guest stars in this one. So we're gonna get to our episode breakdown next. The episode begins with a grim scene, and it's actually something that I think a lot of kids probably think about and parents think about, but it's basically it's a bloody body and clothes dryer because I everybody as a kid thinks at one point I think of hiding in the dryer. but
Yeah, no, I no, it's too tight of a space.
but then your mom is always just like, "No, don't go in there."
Yeah, and I was just like, I don't know, that would be a nightmare situation for me to end up in a dryer. Like, 'cause it's a
Yeah.
small, tight, confined space and, like, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, okay. So this wasn't clear to me. Was she dead when she put her in there?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Okay. Because yeah, Lainey said that once she hit her head, she was a goner. But I mean, it's possible she wasn't because I don't know. Yeah, I don't. Okay, let's not think about that.
I mean, not to, like, jump too far ahead in the episode, but the sense I got from the crime was that when she was hit by her assailant, sort of in the heat of the passion type moment,
Yeah.
that was it. Like, it was that one hit was all it took, and she was
Well,
gone.
it was
So,
two hits because she hits
well,
her with she hits her and then she hits her head on the table or something. But I mean, in this opening scene though, the dryer is on. So did this freaking girl put her in there and then turn the dryer on?
yeah, see, this is what I mean by nightmare situation.
Because that's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
It's one thing to like store the body in there because yeah, we're skipping ahead, but we can come back to that. but uh,
But
okay,
also
so
too, yeah, well, I know we're gonna talk about this, but there's some things with this one that kinda don't make a lot of forensic sense.
so it goes to the station where Castle's meeting with a lawyer because he's signing on to become a consultant. The lawyer is going over all these different scenarios in which Castle cannot sue the city for any harm that comes to him. And I love the part where he says, maybe it's better for your own lawyer to review these documents. And he just laughs at him and says, oh, he would never let me sign these. Ah. But then Bucky gets a call about a case because she was in the room, I guess, to like supervise and ask questions maybe and leave snarky comments. But then she leaves Castle behind, teasing him that he's got paperwork to do. So at the scene, Ryan is explaining about how the body was found, and this was so cute slash hilarious because she mistakenly thinks that the lady killed the girl over laundry.
I mean, if you've ever had to go to a laundromat.
Where you just sit there and stare at the dryer sitting there not on because it's done and they haven't come back to get their clothes yet. Yeah.
Exactly, or living in a unit where, everyone on the same floor shares a washer and dryer, and then that one person just always leaves their stuff in there overnight.
It's even worse if they leave it in the washing machine because then it makes the machine stink, right?
Mhm.
Those people are the worst.
Right, no concept of a shared space.
But then while Ryan and Esposito are discussing laundry room etiquette, Beckett's looking around and she gives him some guidance and goes upstairs to talk to the residents because she was a nanny upstairs. And she finds Castle. They're waiting for her. Because I guess he must have rushed to the paperwork and then rushed over to the building. Yeah.
I imagine Castle just signed whatever. Like, I don't think he actually took time to read it. He
Yeah,
probably just
probably
signed it.
not. But she asks him how long he's going to be following her. And we know that it's going to be quite some time. Forever.
For the rest of your life.
But he knows the victim's name, which he got from the doorman, who's a fan of his books. It must be such a trip, yeah, to like have to be a big enough author where like people just recognize you and like they're like, "Oh, I love your books."
Which, I mean, does that really actually happen to a lot of authors these days? Like, 'cause
I mean, big ones probably.
yeah, I don't know. Like, I kind of feel like they almost like play up the celebrity aspect of it, but then at the same time, like Castle,
This was a while ago though,
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
because I mean, you can argue now that the book market is extremely saturated. Like, there's always like people talking about, oh, there's this huge book, and then I'm just like, I've literally never heard of this author.
Like, yeah, I mean, like, kind of like Colleen Hoover just kind of appeared out of nowhere.
Yeah,
Which, I mean, that is really rude of me to say. So I apologize to any Colleen Hoover fans. It's not that she appeared out of nowhere, but like she became very, I think, popular and well known
she rose to
overnight.
fame really fast. Yeah, I
And then
actually
you,
read some of her early books
mm.
when she was still getting big.
Well, I mean, then there's some authors, right, that you would just never know because
Yeah,
even though they've been writing for years, you wouldn't know them. But what I was gonna say too is like, I kind of said, it's kind of peculiar to me in some ways about like how much fame, Castle receives, and he's just so well known for an author. But then I was thinking, this is like 2009, and Game of Thrones hits the air in 2011, and I mean, like, George R. Martin, kind of becomes like a big name, like a big name author, and
yeah,
like people are and I guess J.K. Rowling was that type of author as well, where people were just like, I know this person and I recognize them. So I guess it's
yeah.
possible, but it just always it wows me because
Plus, like, thriller authors tend to have pretty high profile personas, I think. Like, I mean, people know Lee Child, they know, because he's the author of Jack Reacher, and then
Mhm.
people know, like, David Baldacci and, like,
Stephen
James
King.
Patterson. Yeah, it's just, yeah. So, thriller authors, I think, get a lot of attention. So, I can see it being a thing. It's just because thrillers are so easy to just gobble up because they're fast reads. They're meant
Right.
to be fast paced. So you can just absorb a book like that like in a day, less than a day. So
Meanwhile, I just get caught up in these like multi-book series that never get finished or that are still ongoing or that are so okay, have you ever met your favorite author? Or ever someone who you just really revered and you're like, I know that person, I love their work. Like has that moment ever happened to you in the literary sense?
I mean, I saw Suzanne Collins last year. I got her to sign my book like while I was at the premiere for The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I was standing behind a whole crowd of people and holding my book over their heads, but technically I did see her. So
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Like I got to so when I lived in New Mexico, George R. Martin, he owns a theater in Santa Fe.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so he actually invited Diana Gabaldon, who writes the Outlander series, to come and screen. I can't remember. I think it was the first two episodes of the first season of Outlander. And so he had her come and screen it, and she met with people. She, had some scotch there that they were just kind of handing out as long as you were 21. And so it was really cool. Like, and it was like, I met you. Like, I like you. I would recognize you off the street. And like, she told us all about her historical processes and all of that good stuff. Sorry, this is, like, so off topic, but I was so interested in that author question, sorry.
I actually have a George R. R. Martin connection too. I edited a children's picture book that was written for a short railroad that he owns in New Mexico with the author
Nice.
Doug Preston.
Yeah, it's so funny because most people don't know that New Mexico is a state, first off, but then, like, when you do find out it's a state, like, they don't know that there's this, like, cultural piece, like, of, authors and artists and, all of these creative types that are, out in Santa Fe or Taos and all of that.
So the wife, Mrs. Peterson, tells him that she first learned something was wrong when the school called to say that her son wasn't picked up. And then she came home to find out that the police were there. Castle asks some questions, much to the annoyance of Beckett, because he's only supposed to be observing, which he is definitely not. Yeah, and we learned this about him pretty quickly, that he's the type who like has to pick at something. If like it's bothering him and he wants to say something, he's just gonna say it.
Yeah, and I think he's just naturally curious that way, right? Like he's the author and he's always looking for the story.
But I liked how they were battling against each other without really like arguing. Like they were just like glancing at each other, and like their tone of voice, the way that she was like lilting things she was saying and stuff like that. But they do find out that she had a boyfriend. Is it Brett or Brent? Because I thought it was Brent, but I guess it might have been Brett because I kept hearing Brett too.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
that's a hard one.
See, we had the problem last episode too with Marvin slash Martin.
Yeah, one letter will get
uh,
you every time.
Brett and Brent. Anyway, so they take her backpack and jacket. And I wanted to note that the husband looked kind of cagey in this interview. So I think when I was first watching the show, I was like, oh, it's him. But I think that's intentional. So, because you can see he looks really uncomfortable while they're talking. He starts off sitting far away from his wife and he starts moving closer to her on the couch as the interview goes by. So,
What I kind of think too, which I think is sort of the next step in our episode debrief here, is I think it's natural in a story like this, especially on a rom-com show, that when you hear nanny has been murdered, the first people you suspect are the people that the nanny works for.
yeah. So in the elevator, Castle asks why they didn't ask more questions, and she says that she prefers to investigate things on her own first. And then at the station, they're reviewing the security footage from the elevator, and this becomes important later because they have that's actually the only footage they have of from the building is from the elevator. I think they talked about how the building is old or
Mhm.
something, and so that's the only footage that they have. But they look at how she was filmed twice, once to go put the laundry in and then once again to go back down for presumably to put the laundry in the dryer. So I wanted to ask, is this really how it is in like even higher end apartment buildings in New York where you have to go to a laundry room? Because the Petersons look kind of well off. Like their apartment is really nice and they're well off enough to be able to afford a nanny full time, basically. Because they said she comes in at 11 and then she stays until dinner time. So that's considered full time, right? Basically.
Yeah, I mean, that'd probably be like 6 or 7 hours a day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I think probably in the older buildings, they would have that laundry room type situation because the other thing is you can have a really nice place in New York City and not even have a washer and dryer.
Uh,
So, I mean, because some of the buildings are just really old.
so they don't even have the piping set up for it kind of thing.
Yeah. And I mean, like, if you want that, then you kind of have to go through the hassle of getting the permits and getting all that stuff put in. If it's so dependent on what type of building you're in and everything, too. Because
Uh,
even if you own, you might have to get a permit, like get the permissions to go ahead and get that work done to put the washer and dryer in. But also, too, I mean, the Petersons, like you said, they're kind of well off. So they don't really strike me as the kind of people who would be putting their own laundry in the
yeah.
washer anyway.
I feel like they would be doing like using a laundry service, but I guess if you're already paying for a nanny, you can just have her go
Right.
do your laundry. But I mean, actually, I think they mentioned that she does the kids' laundry. So maybe they use a laundry service for themselves, but she just does the kids' laundry. So,
And probably, yeah, like dry cleaning and stuff, like, I would
yeah.
imagine,
Yeah.
they come by and, like, because 'cause I'm not rich by any means, but even in my building, like, a couple times a week, dry cleaner/laundry slash laundry service comes by, and
uh,
if you have dry cleaning or if you wanna drop your laundry off, they just charge by the pound. I know people love hearing about the laundry.
So Castle asks why they're only going to run names of the maintenance workers and not the neighbors, and he crafts like this story on the fly of some stalker guy who's watching Sarah, and he was like he has them captivated by his storytelling, which I liked because it showed like it really supported like his argument how he's seeking the story. There's got to be a story that's always his motivation is what's the story here. So
Yeah, and it's also a little bit, I don't know, it seems a little uncharacteristic to me that they would just run the names of the maintenance workers. It's
Yeah,
almost like a low-hanging
it
fruit.
yeah, it didn't really make much sense to me, so I feel like that was put in there just to have Castle be able to say this, so, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel
I mean,
like Castle's or like Beckett is a lot more thorough than that.
right, and I also think, like, sometimes I guess you just need Castle to have something to say,
Yeah, yeah,
kinda have that intervention.
yeah, but yeah, in situations like these, I feel like it's a little obvious that it's just written to center around him, but you just roll with it, so. But Montgomery seems really, disturbed by his storytelling because he tells him, "Yeah, you better check out those neighbors." So Castle goes home and Martha's cooked a big meal and then gone to bed. So Alexis is helping Castle put away the leftovers and she asks why she never had a nanny. And then Martha comes downstairs and they start talking about Castle had nannies. And apparently his nanny used to just have him watch himself. And this becomes like a side plot later on in a later season. But I like that they establish it this early. You know, that Castle has issues with his mom and yet he was still nice enough to have her move in when she was struggling.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's just I think Martha's just a very fascinating character, in
Yeah.
terms of, like, who she is and, what we later learn throughout the series about, sort of being a single mom. So there's, I think, something there too.
Yeah. But he mentions that he got the plot for his first novel from One Life to Live because his nanny used to watch it while he was home
That makes so much sense to me that he would get his first plot from, like, One
from a
Life to
soap.
Live. Yeah, because, like, I don't know if you ever did that, like, if you were home from school or something and, like, if you were sick or if it was the summertime, but, like, back when you only had the few channels,
Yeah.
you know, your grandparents would just put on, like, The Price is Right and the stories, and so I could totally see that because there's still storylines to this day, like, 30 years later that I think about, and I'm like, "That would be such a cool movie."
So he gets a call from Beckett to meet her at the medical examiner's office, and they go there and they talk to Lainey, and she tells them about how she thinks the girl died. She says she thinks that she was hit by the bottle of bleach and then she hit her head on the table. I guess the injury was to her forehead. So, ouch. That, just thinking about that makes me touch my forehead. But she also said that Anna had sex in the hours before she died. She can't pinpoint it exactly, but it could have actually even been minutes before her death. And so that becomes important later too. Because and then so she says that she found traces of spermicide, and that means that whoever she had sex with used a condom.
I'm glad he figured that out.
uh, but the jokes that Castle cracks at Beckett here.
Yeah, I mean, he was a little much here, but I liked it. Like, it was funny. Like, "Oh, I can explain that to you later." This is the part that I kind of was like, it doesn't make sense that they had the dryer on because I don't know how the evidence would have been preserved.
Yeah.
That was my sticking point, guys. I watched too much CSI.
I mean, Lady does admit that the dryer being on made it hard for her to pinpoint how old the spermicide was, but so it's a kind of an admittance to that, but they still run with it.
Yeah, it's like a whole thing, and I mean, I was joking about the CSI part, but there's, like, this whole thing called the CSI effect where people are like, "There's always DNA," because of TV shows kinda showing that, and, yeah, there's just certain things like heat and, like, water would I don't know, sorry. This I don't wanna take, like, a turn, but, like, I'm just sitting here thinking, like, how does that work logistically? Sometimes you can know too much about stuff, and then it kinda ruins everything else.
Well, plus there's the whole testing thing too. You don't get DNA results back the same day, like a couple hours later.
No, I mean, it takes a long time. You don't even get you can't even run the test in that amount of time.
Yeah, yeah. They just have really good crime scene techs and lab
Yeah.
techs.
We support the people in STEM. We love Lainey. I support a woman in STEM.
At the station, they're discussing her cell phone records, and through like that, they discover that like maybe this guy Brett/Brent probably they had a bad breakup because they think that she was letting her phones go to voicemail. So they bring him in to talk to him, and he tells Beckett that oh, it was a mutual breakup. But of course, that's not going to be the case because Beckett plays some angry voicemails. He calls her a bitch. He calls her a slut. It's just like, okay, dude, that just doesn't sound mutual. And then he mentions another man. So I guess he knew that she was cheating on, maybe not even cheating with him, but she was with another man. Because it kind of sounds like she broke up with him maybe because of this guy,
Which is so
or
deeply
even,
messed up. Yeah.
yeah.
Not to him. I'm sorry. I just want to be clear. I'm just saying in general,
No,
it's
yeah.
so deeply messed up given the context.
Yeah, because you're allowed to break up with someone and see someone
Exactly.
else. Ugh.
Exactly. And just want to be clear that we support everyone making the break when they need to. It's just the general context of this whole situation's messed up.
The guy, though, he realizes that he gives him an alibi. I guess I think it was work or something. He explains that he can explain where he was, and he asks if he's under arrest. And Beckett says no, and that he can go. And she says, "But don't leave town." And I liked this scene because afterwards, Castle's like, "You can lie to suspects," and the way that he realizes this, it made me think, oh, this is, I think, why I like Nathan Fillion. He's good at changing his expressions and like looking like so excited about something, and he must have had to do that several times, but it came off as very genuine.
Yeah, I mean, there's just something about how he plays the character of Castle where he kind of really easily slides into like this
Yeah, he
mischievous,
embodies him very nicely.
yeah, like the 9-year-old on a sugar rush kind of mentality,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um, and so I think he does a really good job at that.
Yeah, I mean, and even in the things he says too, right? Like when he says this, he's like, "Cool." But so next, Castle and Beckett go to the playground, and I really like this scene because here they have like one of their first of many talks like this, where she gets to learn a little bit more about him, and because he tells her that he used to take Alexis to the playground every day, and this is where we get our Mr. Mom episode title, because she says that she didn't think that he was that kind of type. And when she compliments about it, of course he has to ruin it and talk about how, oh yeah, this is where all the lonely single mothers were. But she asked him how many times he's been married. He says twice. So that would be Gina's one, and we have yet to meet the other one, which is Alexis's mother. So Beckett says she's never been married, and he says, oh, she'd be good at it. That she's both controlling and disapproving.
Oh, that is like he has such a really funny view of marriage for someone who's done it so many times, which I guess is why he has that view, right? Um, but like a couple of things, like I agree with Beckett. Like I want to do the one and be done, not looking for marriage two, three,
Yeah.
four, five. So power to her. And, I think this is something interesting about these two is that we're at the playground where this is happening. And I just want to flag that because, it's possible I have been binging this entire series this whole time. And I think playgrounds might be important to the couple of or to the casket ship, right? I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe. Especially the swings, right?
Playgrounds might be their thing. I don't know.
But so they were there to find a girl named Chloe, which is someone that Brett/Brent told them about. He said that the victim Sarah had been friends with another babysitter or nanny in the building, and I guess there was a scene before this that they didn't show where Castle and Beckett went to talk to the doorman, and he told them where to find the girl. She says that she's the one who helped Sarah get that job because she had been unemployed for a while living in New York and she was struggling. But she admits that she knew that Sarah was seeing someone and that she was guessing that it was Mr. Peterson because she noticed that whenever she had to stay late, that it was only on nights that Mr. Peterson was home. So I actually haven't seen the show in so long that I had forgotten who the killer was. So it was actually like seeing it fresh again. I couldn't remember who did it until like much later in the episode. So I did think it was at first Mrs. Peterson, and then later I thought it was Mrs. Harris. No, Mr. Harris. And then here, though, she's intentionally throwing suspicion on Mr. Peterson because she's actually the killer. So she's being sneaky here.
I love a sneaky killer.
Yeah, I've seen people complain about, oh, it's always like the first or second person they talk to. Why is that? But this is actually a pretty complicated episode in terms of suspects and interviewees and things like that because they talked to quite a few people and it turns out to be someone kind of in the towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, like, you want the killer to be someone who's believable, but maybe not always just give it away in the first 5 minutes, which sometimes they do, and then it's like, "Oh, well, I saw that coming."
Yeah, I in general like I really like the presentation and elimination of all the suspects in this one. It was a nice roundabout, like complicated path to finding her. But so they go back to talk to Mr. Peterson. He admits that he was having an affair, but it wasn't with Sarah. He explains why Sarah was only staying late on his nights, and it was because he was hiding his own affair with someone at work.
Which I don't know if you caught this, but did you catch his sort of like what's the word I'm looking for? His sort of disbelief that they would believe that Sarah was the person he was sleeping with? Like, it was a little shady. It was a little shady.
Yeah, yeah. Because why wouldn't you?
Right.
I
Like,
mean,
it's a
when
natural
there's
leap.
when there's a dead babysitter, of course you're gonna look to the husband, right?
Right, especially if someone's told you, "Oh, she only has to work late on the nights that he's home."
Yeah, that's naturally suspicious.
Right. If the people could see my facial expressions right now, they would know.
So at the station, Ryan has, I guess, pulled more cell phone records, and he has found out someone who wasn't where they said they'd be during the murder. And he tries to make her guess. I thought this is cute. He's like playing keep away with like the phone thing, and he's trying to get her to guess, but she's not having it. She just takes it, and it turns out to be Mrs. Peterson. But I wanted to note that Ryan picks up a book from his desk, and it's a Castle novel, so he's still reading Castle's books.
I guess he likes them.
He's a fan. I don't know what book it was though. I was trying to pause it. I couldn't get it. It was a red cover though. So they go to confront Mrs. Peterson, and she says it's because she knows that her husband is having an affair. And she knows that it's not Sarah because Sarah's the one who told her. Because I guess he was paying her extra to cover for him. What a sleazeball. This whole building is full of sleazeballs.
Yeah, which I also don't understand that because, like, if he's paying you extra to be there, why are you telling his wife?
Well, I mean, she might be close to the wife, right? That's her
So,
employer too. Maybe she likes her, and maybe she's just like, oh, I feel bad because maybe
oh,
she
so
figured out, what he was doing. I don't know,
so are we thinking sisters before misters, maybe?
something. But she was lying about where she was to hide the fact that she was at her divorce attorney's office because she's gonna serve her husband with papers. So there's gonna be more than one divorce going on in this building.
Good for her, man. Good for her. Like, divorce him.
So next we have Castle sitting in his home office and he is watching the elevator footage, which this dates the show because he says he burned the footage to a DVD. Nowadays it would just be like
On a cloud.
digital files.
Well, I guess it depends, right? Because like they would have to have like updated their security system. Because I mean, this would have been top of the line security in 2009, right?
I don't
Like,
know. But I just thought it was funny that he burnt a DVD. But so Martha comes in and she's criticizing him, and then Alexis comes in and he talks to them about how he's looking for her cell phone because they never found the girl's cell phone. And he thought that was weird. But that's when he notices that there's a 5-second difference in her trip, which means that she was coming from a different floor.
yeah, like that's just such a like that's such a minute detail to catch. I mean, that's kind of amazing, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
why does this one trip take her 5 seconds more? She must be somewhere else. But
Yeah, and I admit I didn't understand at first. I was just like, so? I was like everybody else.
right, right. And I think one of the things I really appreciated about this scene was Martha. Because I mean, she like literally walks up to him and sees what he's looking at and is like, why would any woman hire someone that gorgeous to come work in her home? Sort of implying that like, if you hire someone that looks like that, like she's obviously going to sleep with your husband. And I mean, I don't know. Martha, I think, is an endearing character, but she kind of has that vibe about her. It's like that, like classic Hollywood vapid. She does. They're from time to time. There's just little statements that she makes that are like,
Yeah.
dated.
Meanwhile, I think other people would just be like, "Oh, she's just a young girl."
Right, right.
So the next day, Castle is very eager to show Beckett what he's discovered. So he does it with show and tell. He puts her in the elevator and he has it kind of sounds like he had her do several elevator rides to like because he demonstrates obviously he's going to demonstrate the 12th floor, but then I think he experiments with like maybe going up to 13, 14, maybe not 13 because some buildings don't have a 13th floor. But I think he probably did 14 and 15 just to show like what the 5 second difference where the 5 second difference comes from. And then after he gets out he's like, I didn't need to do that, I just thought you smelled nice. Ah, that was cute. But so they go and they don't know who on the 15th floor she was there to see. So the first door they knock on is an old man. Oh my god, this scene was I felt so bad for that guy because they're just tearing him down. But oh my god. So he opens the door and I was like, "Oh my god, it's Uncle Leo." For those of you who never watched Seinfeld, he was a side character. He was Jerry Seinfeld's uncle. And whenever he came on, like it was like, Uncle Leo. So eventually they see the girl that Chloe was watching at the playground. And so they go and they question the mother, and her skeevy, suspicious husband comes out of the bedroom. He does not look like a good guy just from the outside. I don't even know what it was. Was it just
Yeah, I mean, there's just something that's kind of suspicious about him, like the way he comes out of the bedroom and he's just kind of like, "Ah, I didn't know, I didn't see her."
yeah? And he says he's a musician too, so I guess that still carries some kind of bad reputation because it effectively makes you think, ooh, it's this guy.
Mhm.
He's the one who was sleeping with Sarah. But I mean, it is confirmed that he was sleeping with her. But he denies seeing her that day, and he like gives them some time frame things. So basically, Castle goes to check the bathroom and he finds condoms there. I like that he had to whisper condoms to Beckett twice, like she didn't catch on the first time. I mean, I think she did. He was just trying to like be like, "Did you hear me?"
Yeah, like he needed the acknowledgement that she
Yeah.
got it.
So they're not like they haven't honed their nonverbal communication just yet.
Yeah, they're not completely in sync quite yet.
Yeah, yeah. But it's amusing. But so Castle calls Sarah's phone and it rings in the bedroom, and the wife goes in there and finds it under their bed. Dun dun dun. That's pretty damning.
I would say so.
And her ringtone is actually the song that was playing in the opening scene with the dryer, the body of the dryer.
Yeah, which is Pink's So What?
Yeah.
Which I like the soundtrack of the season, and
Yeah, yeah. So
I
far
kind
it's
of
been good.
yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like, it's an indicator, of like, how hip Castle's supposed to be. And, because traditionally I say traditionally, like I'm a connoisseur and I know everything about this, but traditionally on the network shows, with the Nielsen ratings, they were really trying to attract the 18 to 49 viewer. If you had to ask me what I was playing in 2009, it probably was Pink's Misunderstood album, which I'm pretty sure So What is on. I'm pretty sure that's the album.
And it kind of speaks to the budget that Castle probably had because to have these really popular songs, I'm sure
Mhm.
they probably had to pay hefty fees.
I would say so, and the fact too, I think this is important to know, right, is that this is a popular song that is still on this
Yeah,
episode, right? Because 'Cause we've
yeah,
seen series that go to streaming or even DVD that can no longer carry the music that they once
yeah.
had because of those rights.
Yeah, I mean, and the last in the pilot, it was One Republic too, right? So
Mhm.
okay, so while they're interrogating Ian, I had mentioned this earlier, but he gave some times that show that he couldn't have been there in the laundry room to kill Sarah. So basically, he was having sex with Sarah, and he says that she left before one, and that he knows that she leaves before one because Chloe gets back with his daughter at one. And then Chloe and his daughter would have been with him in the apartment after that point. So there isn't time for him to have killed Sarah. And so at this point, his lawyer arrives and stops the interrogation. But the condoms come back as a match. So all they can really They say that they can only really prove that that they had sex, but at the same time, I'm just like, does that prove though? Because it's just no, it's a common condom brand, so I don't think.
I mean, they can prove the brand, but they can't really attach him to Sarah in that way.
Although he does say that, right? In
Well,
the
yeah.
interrogation. Yeah, yeah, okay. So,
So I guess it doesn't even matter then, right? Like,
yeah, yeah. Or did he say?
yeah, he admits to having sex with her.
He admitted it, but he says that he wouldn't have hurt her. That's when they start honing in on Chloe. So, because they find footage of Chloe in the elevator, and Beckett notices that she doesn't have the girl with her, the little girl that she's supposed to have. And so they go to look for her, but she's not home because she went into the city. And so that made me wonder, like, where did she actually live? Do you think? Did they say?
I don't think so.
Okay. But Castle notices a family picture of the Harrises and says that the mom has been blocked out of the photo. So that gives them a clue that she has a thing for the guy, the skeevy musician.
Yeah, I mean,
You make bad choices when you're young, right?
yeah, and I mean, like, he's sleeping with 2 nannies, like, his own and one in the building another one in the building. That just seems like it's a recipe for disaster. I don't know what he was thinking.
Yeah, he's thinking with his other head.
Yeah, I guess so.
But so Ryan and Esposito meet them at the building, and she tries to get Castle to stay outside, but then she sets some rules and tells him to come in. And he actually listens this time, kind of. So they go to find Ian Harris upstairs. He's been knocked out, and the wife and the daughter are locked in the bathroom. They lock themselves in there. And then they get a call that there's a girl spotted in the laundry room with a knife. And so they go downstairs, and Beckett is trying to talk the girl down. She's like, I mean, she was identifying with her and telling her, I know that, like, these things happen to you. And she admits that she's actually pregnant. So I guess he wasn't using condoms with, with this other girl.
Well, I guess they're only 98% effective, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know.
maybe. Yeah, that's true. But so she is in a bad way, this poor girl. I mean, she's cutting her leg with that kitchen knife that she's holding, and she's talking about how she killed Sarah and she didn't mean to, and she was just trying to tell her that. And I thought this was particularly sad. She said that she just wanted to go talk to her and tell her that she and Ian were in love. And it's like, the naivete there, because he's obviously just using them, but she still can't see that. Like, she
Right.
just wants to try to like plead her case and say like, you can't do this because he loves me. He's gonna leave
Right.
her for me. And it's just it's very.
And two, I mean, like, she doesn't say it, but, like, the fact that, they add that she's pregnant, I mean, she probably has some real expectations, right? That, like, "Oh, he
Yeah,
said he's gonna leave his wife, and now I'm pregnant, and we can be a family, and so I just gotta go talk to her and tell her that, she can't have him, or, this is
yeah,
what's going on." And again, yeah, naivete, right? Because someone who's cheating on his wife with you, and you find out he's cheating on
on
both of
you
you,
with.
yeah, with somebody else. I mean, come on.
And I mean, she looks young. She looks like early 20s probably, and that's a lot of emotional like heartbreak to take at once. So yeah, I felt bad for her. Although, like I said, I mean, she threw that girl in the dryer and turned it on.
Yeah, I mean, that's what doesn't make that is what gets me with, like, every rom-com show, though, to be honest, because, like, some of these killers are super sympathetic, and I know, like, they do it for the drama, the flair, right? How do we have people find the body? How can we shock the audience? But sometimes the crimes are just like this one, right? Where it's just,
Yeah,
heat of passion, someone that you really do empathize with, and she didn't really mean to kill her, but then she puts her in a dryer.
yeah,
Right, and that
and turns
sets
it on. It's
it
it's
and different tone, right? Completely changes the tone.
yeah, because turning it, I mean, shoving her in the dryer just to hide her speaks to, oh my god, I didn't mean to. I'm so sorry. I'm so scared. I'm gonna hide her. But turning it on is just kind of like, you bitch. This is what you get for sleeping with my baby daddy.
Yeah.
So she gets her to drop the knife, and then outside, Castle praises Beckett for her sisterhood thing, trying to talk the girl down. But Beckett, she says it wasn't a thing. She was actually just talking about how, like, despite everything that this guy did, he gets to walk away. And when Castle points out, well, he's probably getting divorced, so he's not getting away scot free. And she says, whatever it is, it won't be enough. And yeah, when you think about all the lives he's ruined, it sucks and it's not fair.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I think it also speaks to this idea, right, of someone who is probably the true villain of this story, if we're being honest, right?
Yeah.
Like, the person who caused the most harm in this story is the one who's gonna face the fewest consequences. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not saying he's responsible for Sarah's murder, right? Because that was Chloe who hit her, right? And so, like, he didn't do it, he wasn't involved in it, but it's his actions, like, his, "Let me not only sleep with 1 nanny, but 2 in this building," and
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and he emotionally manipulated her to the point where she, thought these things, and so when it all comes crashing down on her, it's just too much. And I mean, maybe she did do it by accident or she did it intentionally, but the point is, like, he was the impetus, right? He was the reason that she was down there in the first place, and whatever her thinking was, yeah,
yeah. I mean, and I think the fact that she first hits her with bleach, because if I understand it right, she hits her with the bleach, then she hits the table, and the table's what did her
yeah,
in.
yeah, yeah,
And so, like, I mean, on one hand, she didn't bring a weapon, she just picked something up that was nearby to
yeah.
hit her, but then, I don't know. Again, it's someone who you kinda empathize with their situation. She just did the wrong thing.
And like you don't really think like that you're gonna kill someone with a bottle of bleach. It was a small bottle too. Like I think she probably was just really angry and she lashed out, not necessarily with the intent to kill her. She was just super, super upset. And she ended up.
Yeah. So us legal types, this is what makes the difference between, like, when they talk about, and I mean, Castle doesn't really get into the legality so much as other shows do, but, like, this really is the difference between, like,
Murder
first-degree
and
murder,
manslaughter.
second-degree murder, and manslaughter. Yeah,
Yeah.
like, sort of, did this person have an intent to kill? Were they just acting with depraved indifference because of the heat of the
Hmm.
moment, which is kind of a sexist thing, but you guys don't need to hear me go on about that. So,
And also, I mean, she's pregnant, so she's gonna have a kid, and doesn't really seem like the I'll help pay for this child support kind of guy. So,
well,
yeah,
he's about to
there's
lose
that.
half his stuff, so there's that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what's really sad is, right, she's gonna be in prison and having this baby, and she'll
Yeah,
never get
yeah,
to have her baby because she's in prison.
yeah. Back at home, Castle's writing. You can kind of see what he's writing. He's writing about Nikki Heat. He says you can see the words about how her heart had once been broken. So I guess he's taking from Beckett and putting it into the page.
Yeah, which, I mean, I think that's really interesting because I don't recall that we ever get that specific backstory for Beckett, but, being able to talk to her and empathize with her like that, right? And I think Beckett really did pick up on that emotional manipulation aspect of this.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, it's not that he was, like, that much older than her, but he is a little older, right, than
yeah,
both of these young women, and, does the emotional manipulation, makes her think, like, she's gonna have this great life, and they're gonna be together, and, so, while Castle did jokingly call it, like, a sisterhood thing and, like, "Oh, how you got her to come in," I mean, it really was just, Beckett's impeccable show of empathy in that
yeah,
moment for, what this young woman was experiencing because, like, I'm willing to say most women have either had that situation themselves, not saying that most women have had affairs with married men, but, like, have been in a situation where, either they or a friend of theirs has faced that kind of emotional manipulation from someone, and
where you
they just fall
expect
apart.
one thing, right? You
Yeah,
expect one thing, and then when you come to that sick realization that what you thought was the way the world worked is not how
right.
it works. That's rough, right? I think every woman I think goes through some form of that somehow.
Yeah, I mean, it's like this there's this C.S. Lewis quote, like, "Experience is a brutal teacher, but my God, do you learn?" And I only know that quote, by the way, because it's on an episode of Criminal Minds, and it's really great. But that's why I know it. It's not that I'm like a student of C.S. Lewis's work, but, I think that's true, right? Because we often have these conversations in different places, and I think it comes through here in Beckett and what she's doing by showing, Chloe this bit of empathy and grace in this moment. 'Cause, I mean, again, at the end of the day, Chloe still killed someone, right? And so
Yeah,
Beckett
yeah.
has to take her in and arrest her, but, she is showing her that empathy and grace because, like, with experience, we do learn, right, that, like,
Mhm.
who the villain in this situation really is,
Yeah.
and the fact that he's not gonna have to pay for that, really.
But so this like grim stuff really gets nicely rounded out with Castle and Alexis because she comes in and they talk about the case and how he was surprised by who it was, and she tells him that it's okay to be surprised sometimes and that's where the fun is. And that's precisely where the fun of the show is, right? So she speaks truth there.
For sure, for sure, and I thought that was a very sweet moment between Alexis and Castle. It's, kind of like a, "Thanks for being my dad."
Yeah, no, she says, "Dad, thanks for being my nanny." I was like, "Aw."
Yeah.
It's a very sweet moment. But yeah, he takes a picture of him and little Alexis at the playground at night. And yeah, I loved, similar to how Beckett was moved by hearing that he used to take her to the playground himself every day. It's just a nice aspect of him because you get that you form this image of him from the first episode that he is just this naughty man child who has to be parented by his own daughter.
Right.
but
Like, he's a playboy type, right? Like,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
serious, bachelor, and he's also wealthy, and so you don't really expect that he would be the type of parent who is just very hands-on
hands
in
on.
taking his kid
Yeah.
to the playground.
So no watches yet. I'm still coming up empty on on rewatch lists.
Yeah, yeah,
It'll come to us eventually. So
eventually.
let's go to author's notes. There are a few interesting ones. Apparently Nathan Fillion was on One Life to Live. I thought that was funny to read. He was on it for 7 episodes. I did not know that about him until today.
Yeah, I don't think I made that connection. I mean, like, I know Nathan Fillion from the Whedonverse like everyone else
Yeah,
does.
yeah,
I
yeah.
shouldn't say everyone else, but, like, most Gen X and millennials know him from the
Yeah,
Whedonverse.
yeah. I did not take him for a soap star. But the actress who plays Mrs. Peterson is married to the episode's director. And oh, so I mentioned the old man who played Uncle Leo. That was actually apparently his last role. So
Oh,
that's kind of sad, but it was a cute one. I liked when he yelled down the hall, 77 isn't. He's basically telling Beckett that, an old man can still have sex.
I know. Like, don't rule him out, you know? Like, don't count him out.
But like the confusion in that scene was just hilarious too because he's like, you want to have sex with me?" Oh, that was good
Uh,
comedy.
yeah, and so maybe not a real author's note, in terms of trivia, but, like, something I've always been impressed with this series is the styling of Beckett and how they style her, and, like, having followed Sonic Addict's social media over the years, right? Like, she's attributed with, having once said, I don't know if she actually said it. I don't think she was the one that coined the phrase, but like the higher the hill, the closer to God or something like that. I don't think she created that, but I think she has said it. I'm always floored by the heels she wears. I don't know if you caught this, but she's wearing some pretty steep stilettos in this particular
Really?
episode. Yeah, like they're stiletto boots. Like they're probably
Uh,
booties because they're under. So in 2009, we were still wearing bootcut jeans, which are back. But they're under her jeans or her pants rather, or trousers, whatever people call them. And you can see like it's a really high pointy stiletto. And I was just like, I have no idea how anyone walks around in those. And I know people have complained about like different crime shows and rom-com shows where, the women are just, even though they're
Dressed to
styled
the nines.
right, like they're styled stylishly like Beckett is, but it's not practical. And I'm
Yeah,
always like, I know those heels aren't practical, but I mean, she makes them work. Like,
yeah.
I would be over there walking like a baby duck.
Well, also too, like you think about it, she would have had to actually work in them while she's acting. Like even like being
Exactly.
on a set all day long for like 12 to 15 hours, that's brutal to wear shoes like that. I hope they
Yeah.
had like comfortable shoes for her to wear in between.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have seen like in more recent years, and I know this happened before then too, like, this isn't brand new, but, like, sometimes you'll catch behind the scenes photos from these shows, and you'll see the actresses in, like, Crocs or house shoes or
Uh-huh.
because they're yeah, they take those things off between
Thank
the
God.
I couldn't do it. I swear I could not, and the fact that she, like, moves so effortlessly in those, oh my gosh, I'm so
Yeah.
impressed.
And I don't know. The other thing too is like I feel like if you wear comfortable shoes too much, you can kind of ruin your feet for wearing heels like that. Because I remember I used to be able to wear really high heels in high school, but then when I went to college, I started wearing sneakers all the time, and I couldn't go back to heels. My feet were like too used to comfort. They were like, "Nope, you're not wearing those anymore."
Exactly, exactly, like but I see I've always been of the mentality that I need to be able to move quickly, like,
Yeah,
if I
yeah.
have to get out of here, I gotta dart out of here, I'm gonna run out of here, right? So, heels are just not my thing.
I mean, I can see like heeled boots, but the ones that are like wide heels, like I think those are
Yeah.
fine. But stilettos, I think it's too easy for you to just fall over.
Well, yeah, and I mean, like, for sure, and I would be weird not to point out that Stana Katic was actually in a movie called Stilettos, which actually is a really good movie. It's kind of a revenge flick, so it's out there. But and I won't tell you why it's called Stiletto. But I mean, yeah, because like I don't know if you guys have talked about this in the Minimalist at all, because it's probably not come up yet. But like Robin Tunney wears those like block heels, right?
Yeah,
When
yeah,
she's because like she's so short that you can't get them. It's like the Gillian Anderson, David Duchovny thing where you can't get them in the same
yeah.
frame if, I'm over here with my hands like doing the frame thing with the same frame because one is too short, one is too tall. And so anyway, like she does that, but then fans are constantly talking about like
Her running.
her
They critique
running.
they critique her running all the time. It drives me crazy.
Me too, because I'm like, I couldn't do that. Like you would tell me to run in heels and I'd be like, sir, please give me my flat boots. I need my flat shoes.
This brings to mind that Hollywood AD scene where like Scully has to go teach Taya
Yes.
Leone how to run in her shoes.
Yes. I thought that was such a brilliant scene, and it's kind of in the background, and they're just running the whole time, but it's a whole thing, right? Like,
Yeah,
there's a whole joke
yeah,
about it
yeah.
in terms of, like, how you have to learn how to run in these shoes because, like, it's not most
Yeah,
people don't run in
Scully
heels
is always running in high heels.
because she has to, because they can't catch her and mold her in the same shot.
Even with the Jilly board.
Yeah, I mean, everything that Gillian Anderson did to give us the X-Files is just I mean, she ruined her hair.
Yep, yep.
She probably ruined her feet and her knees, whatever, because of the heels.
To explain to people what Neosh was talking about, Gillian Anderson had to bleach and dye her hair red to get the Scully red. She's not a redhead. So
Yeah.
that's,
I
that's what
guess I
she's
could have
talking about.
explained that better. Yeah, she's not a redhead, and so, like, to get that color, you have to actually or bleach, right, your hair and
Yeah, yeah.
do it every couple weeks. I've done it before.
Which is rough on your hair.
It is because if you're really trying to maintain it, every few weeks you gotta hit the roots, and it's bleach on the roots
Hmm.
and drag the red through. Anyway, I know you guys love all the knowledge we have about hair dyes and shoes.
All right, let's get to Caskett Corner. I really like the Mr. Mom conversation and the marriage debate in the park. The both of those are so cute. What about you? Is there anything? Is there anything else?
So what I really like about the Mr. Mom comment is it's almost a throwaway where it's like, oh, she's just teasing him or whatever. And I feel like we have to mention that Mr. Mom is actually in reference to the 1983 film starring Michael Keaton, which is about, a man who, if I remember correctly, was laid off from work. And so his wife goes to work or is maybe already working. But the point is, right, is he becomes the stay-at-home dad, which if you can imagine 1983, even now, it's not that common, but, like, it's the idea that because he's a stay-at-home parent, he's now Mr. Mom. And so it's a play on, sort of these gendered roles, but, like, I think you're right in terms of sort of what happens later and, this turn towards family. Because I do think Beckett is somewhat impressed to hear
Yeah.
that, he took Alexis to the park every day and that he had such an active role in her upbringing.
All right, bestseller list. Favorite scenes and lines. I mean, like I said, I like the marriage debate, and I also like the thing that he did with the elevator when he says, "I just did it because you smell nice."
Yeah, and I really just love that end scene or the last scene with Castle and Beckett because for me, at this point, we're just 2 episodes in. We're not that deep, right? We
Yeah.
can tell that they have shared feelings for each other or they're starting to, right? At least some sort of attraction. But you can really see how much differently they see the world at this point because in terms of like punishment and what's justice, Castle really does see Ian's punishment as coming through this divorce settlement, right? Like he's getting
Yeah.
divorced. He's going to lose a bunch of money because his wife's going to be able to prove that, he was having this affair and putting their lives in danger. Well, 2 affairs, putting their lives in danger, had another baby. Like, okay, cool. But then there's Beckett, who is like,
She lives in the real world. She understands like
right,
all the all the reverberations that are going to go through everybody's lives. So,
right. He's going to go unpunished for all the harm he's caused. And I mean, I think that's also too indicative of what we learn in episode 10 of this season in terms of, sort of what pushes Beckett
mhm.
herself. So, I mean, I think there's some element of that, but, I think it's a really good sort of window into, at this point in time, Castle and Beckett do kind of see the world through different lenses.
All right, favorite lines. I wrote down two that I liked. One was, "Do I have to wait for him to sign or can I shoot him now?" She's asking the lawyer that in the beginning. And the other one is when he's saying that Beckett would be really good at poker and that if she doesn't want to play poker at a high stakes game with famous authors, that they could always make it strip poker. And she says, "Sorry, but I prefer mystery to horror." It's a cute little dig. I like that.
It is. It is. And we all know that she would not mind playing ship poker with Castle. Maybe not with all of his author friends, but with Castle, it'd be okay. So I really like the line, well, apparently, in an actual homicide, they don't know who did it until after the guy gets caught. And that's from Castle. And it's so funny because it's kind of tongue in cheek in terms of like this type of show, first of all, right?
Yeah.
Where we're just like, it's so obvious who it is. Or, sort of, this is right in the lead up to the big true crime era, where everyone just now knows who did it and why can't the police see that? And so I really did kind of like this tongue in cheek joke about, well, in the real world, we don't know who it is until after we arrest them. But then, that bit about Castle, I can't remember the exact line, but him telling her, like, he'll explain to her later about how sex works. I'm just like,
I think it was because Lainey said she had sex and Beckett said sex. And he
yeah,
said, "I'll explain how that works later."
yeah.
All right, we're gonna take a quick break and we'll come back with our newest Beckett's interrogation quiz. All right, we're back and with our next Beckett's interrogation. You can check out our social media accounts for a bonus question. The way this works is I'm going to ask Neosha 5 questions of questionably increasing difficulty about the episode we just discussed, and you'll have 5 seconds to come up with an answer, and then you can let us know how you did. But question one, very easy. I know you're going to get this one for sure, even though I jinxed you last time.
I don't know. My test anxiety is coming in hot, man. Let's lay it on me. Let's do it.
All right, what singer did Sarah use as her default ringtone?
Oh, pink. Yeah.
Yeah. Yay. See? Got it. Question two, what's in the bottle Beckett observes on the floor of the laundry room?
Bleach.
Correct. Question three, who said the line, if that's not a cautionary tale about poking around in someone else's laundry, I don't know what is?
So this is when they found her body.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to say it's Beckett.
It's Esposito.
Dang.
Okay, question four. What apartment does Castle's fictional stalker for Sarah live in?
What apartment number?
Yeah. He gives like a made up apartment number for the person that he speculates, like when he's giving this whole storyline about a stalker.
Oh, yeah, I had no idea. Sorry.
It's 8 8B.
Oh, 8B, that makes sense.
Yeah, it was funny because after he did that, Montgomery was like, "And find out who was in 8B," because he was just so caught up in the story. I love that.
Just so people know, I never know what these questions are ahead of time. So this is not me putting you on in terms of like not knowing the answers because like I don't even know what she's gonna ask.
Yeah, yeah. Although Tara and Karen have started to like trying to watch the episode, trying to figure out what my questions are. Okay, question 5. This is the hardest question. What cop show does Martha say she was once on? This is an actual show, as a hint.
Do I get to like ask for a hint?
That was my hint. It's an actual show.
Oh, for some reason Dragnet is in my mind, but I don't think that's right.
She was on NYPD Blue
Uh,
as a homeless lady.
as a homeless lady. Oh my gosh.
All right, any last thoughts?
No, I enjoyed the episode. You know, I enjoy the pace that we're building out these characters and starting to learn a little bit more about them.
Yeah, and like I said, I hadn't watched this episode in long enough where I couldn't remember who it was. I can't remember at what point in the episode I remembered who it was, but it was a good fresh watch.
Yeah.
All right. If you're enjoying Rom-Com Detectives, we hope you'll consider taking a minute to leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. For our question of the week, you can leave us a comment on Spotify, YouTube, or Reddit and tell us who your nanny was growing up. Was it your parents? Was it an actual nanny? Was it someone else, family member? But if you'd like to join additional conversations about Castle, you can visit the Castle subreddit at reddit.com/r/CastleTV. To contact me and Neoshia, you can email us at host@romcomdetectives.com. You can follow us at Instagram, Threads, or Blue Sky at Romcom Detectives, or leave us a voicemail or text message at 1-650-733-XOXO or 9696. This episode of Rom-Com Detectives was recorded on June 26, 2025. Rom-Com Detectives Castle Unit is co-hosted by Krista Watanabe and Neoshia Roemer and is produced by Pico's House. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you guys next time for our breakdown of Hedge Fund Homeboys. Bye.
Bye.